to David and the whole crew on CMX. It's like it is really something special. It is really a true community emerging, and it's just amazing to see. It was needed, and so I'm just lucky to be part of it. So we're going to talk about the future, and the future that I want is a community future. So we are we're in a weird world right now. The rich are getting richer, poorer are getting poorer. Opportunity for those that aren't in our, like in an internet industry is actually it's a hard thing. We have a black president, yet we have rougher race relations and Black Lives Matter being a loud, important thing. We have climate change, and which is basically going to mean more resilient community. More resilient community in the future. This is not just about community. Isn't just like a marketing strategy or something. This is a question about what is the future. And my definition of community comes down to this core question of community is people talking. Community is people talking. That sounds a little sort of dumb and obvious, but it is what I've learned after these 150 million Meetup RSVPs that have happened in over these years, and that is that it's literally like, do people have permission and license to talk to each other? That you can even be at a conference like this and actually just kind of stick your face in front of your screens when you might have a chance to talk to other people. Are you actually going to connect with anyone in a way that might make their life or your life better here today? You could easily sort of default not. But the question is what is it in the world, what is it in culture that is going to actually jolt people to really connect? And a simple, let me just give the most stupid, simple, basic example of what I'm talking about. When I landed in New York City from Iowa 20 years ago, I found myself in a job. I was working at Sony, and I was at orientation on day one, and there was a guy sitting next to me. And this guy was named Brendan McGovern. And Brendan and I have worked together ever since. Through a couple startups, he co-founded Meetup with me. He was the accounting, day one guy, and I was the guy doing this bizarre internet stuff before there was much internet back then. And we've worked together ever since, as I said, and that's a magical thing. The idea of, like, had we not met, my life would be worse. And I, as we sort of get into this for a few minutes, I want you to just take a quiet moment to think of one friend that you feel so lucky to have met in your life. Just really think of one person and think to yourself, what was that weird circumstance of how you met them? Maybe you went to school with them, maybe they happened to live near you, maybe you worked with them, but it was a crazy confluence of life things that got you that company that maybe you met a good friend at, that company was started, and it was like this. It's serendipity, but it is also a bunch of choices people make, and you were thrust together. You were put together, and it's. I'm not saying that it wasn't random, but the point is people did stuff to make that happen, and in the end, had you not met. Your life wouldn't be as good, right? So I'm going to make a prediction. Here's what I'm going to do for the next 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to tell you about 3 things that are really at the heart and soul of community for me that I've learned. I'm going to mention a few organizations that are using Meetup in a really interesting way, and I'm going to announce something. But at the heart of it is this question of what is a community future. And when you think about the future, you have to realize that things go in weird directions that are unpredictable and unrecognizable in the current. So This is a chart. This is going to seem totally unrelated, but you'll get my point in a second. This is a chart of camera sales for a few decades. And I realize you probably can't read the details, but basically this is going from 1933 to 2014, and the gray here are analog cameras. So people bought cameras, your grandparents bought cameras, and your parents bought cameras. And then all of a sudden this blue thing happened. What do you think that is? Digital cameras. And boom, look, all that blue. All of a sudden people buying a lot more cameras than they ever bought before. But that's not the end of the story, because there's this orange thing. Some of you can read it. What's the orange? Smartphone. So it's you have a camera. It's on your smartphone. Now, I started something called Photolog, which became the world's biggest photo sharing community right about here. And people uploaded. You were only allowed to upload one photo a day. It was called Photolog. And people uploaded 1 billion photos, and they could only do one a day. We became the #1 website in a bunch of countries, bigger than Google and Facebook. You haven't heard of it because it got killed by Facebook, and it also wasn't big in America. But I started it here, and we sold it to a French company right about here. And look, the orange line was taken off. But here's the thing that's amazing. That orange actually goes higher than the chart. So this is what we were just looking at, the little blue line here. Can you all see? And sometimes things happen in the world that just blow shit up. And there are charts like this about all kinds of things. There's the internet in general, all kinds of things in life. It just happens to happen a bit faster today. So here's my big thesis for you guys for what the future holds. So this is basically a made-up prediction of this world of connections. So we're here, and basically there's going to be a lot more. But what is a connection? A connection is not just people sitting next to you at orientation, because those connections will always happen. The connections that are happening now are people who, for example, wanted to sell someone a ride, and people who want to buy a ride. People who want to, who have an extra room to rent, and people who want a room to rent. That connection, the internet is a network of people, not a network of computers and phones, and it is made of people. It is built to connect people, and that is the heart. What's Etsy? It's people selling homemade crap. People who want to buy, handmade crap. People want to buy handmade crap. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'm not saying anything, revolutionary or all that special, but if you really have to just think of all this stuff is about how are people finding the others? How are people finding the others? How do they find their people? Even if it's just for this transaction of a ride or renting a room, or on Stack Exchange, people helping each other out, or people connecting at GA, at General Assembly, or whatever it is. It's just connections. This network is a connection machine, and there's going to be more and more connections. And the good thing is that these connections are at the heart and soul of life. They're what and it's certainly the Lyft drivers being able to make a living, and the Etsy sellers being able to make a living, and the Airbnb hosts being able to make money. But it goes beyond money. It's about this, as I said, the world is getting weirder. We're more connected yet less connected. It can feel that way. That strangers are getting stranger because you can live in a bubble of your world, and people can be more standoffish. Or will this happen? I don't mean to be so dramatic, but screw it, I will. I really believe that this is the stuff that saves the world. Is how that it has everything to do with from Black Lives Matter to community resiliency that is essential in all kinds of ways. So So this form of community, which is how people build connections that actually sustain, is a really interesting one. So there are fleeting connections, and that is community, but there's also connections that build something and sustain and grow. So there are the three sort of heart and soul of community for me is how community creates support. Like you see, I heard this really beautiful story of how these women were sick of being thought of as military wives when they would go to military events, when in fact they were military vets. And they found each other, and this identity became stronger, and the pride became stronger, and they had this vision of there being more and more women veterans meetups like them in San Antonio. There's this organization called the Young Survivors Coalition, which is a network of women under 30 who have breast cancer, and they were kind of this traditional organization and decided that support groups just weren't right for this generation in the way that they were being done, and there was not enough. There wasn't real offline, face-to-face community. So they decided to launch meetups, and the meetups have been taking off all over the place. This happens to be a picture of them displaying the age in which they were diagnosed with breast cancer. This is basic support stuff, which sounds so trite and obvious. There's nothing like hearing the stories like we've heard, like I've heard of if you're a mom in Jersey City, there's the Jersey City Moms Meetup, which swarms its members with support. It literally, if you need something, the other women are there. If you're the story of one of the moms had a new baby. Baby had to be in the newborn intensive care unit. Sure, they've got other friends and family, but that community swarmed them with support. That they were there for them. So community creates support. Community creates collaboration. Collaboration is it's not just so you can rent a ride, you can rent a room from each other, you can sell a ride to each other, you can buy some stuff from each other, but the ability to make people collide and collaborate is so powerful. An example of that is I'm trying to show examples of organizations using Meetup. Salesforce, the company Salesforce, they have developers on their developer network. 130 cities now. They have a Salesforce developer meetup that is just strengthening the network of people doing software development around Salesforce, and it's a really valuable thing for them. Community creates opportunity. That's my third important point here. When there's this story of this couple named Felicia and Jamal. They are based uptown. They were out of work, and they decided they wanted to get into programming. And so instead of just taking a class or doing Codecademy, which is great, or looking up stuff on YouTube, or doing the things that people do to learn something, they decided they wanted a study group. So they started this meetup that they thought was just going to be 5 or 6, 7 people that they would learn programming with. And instead, it turned into this 7,000-member meetup now that is spawning people getting jobs left and right. That is community creating opportunity. Girl Develop It is another example. Actually, I'll show you a 2-minute video on them real quick.
The only thing that I've found that's nearly as powerful as programming is seeing the change in a person when they start to think differently about their own power. And I see that happen when people learn technology skills. In 2010, we felt like there was already way more talk about the gender gap in technology than there was action. We were just like, can I personally help one other woman feel comfortable learning technology? And the answer is yes. I think our first class was 30 people, and it sold out within 24 hours.
It's so much easier to learn to code when there are other people around you who you can ask, how do I get through this?
Meetup has always been about getting people together, and so the in-person environment has been fundamental to Girl Develop It from day one.
The energy around being in a room full of women who are like putting in their time and their effort to learn something new, that's not always easy. They're so inspiring, you know, like they're doing this in their free time.
We have one lady in our classes that was like 50 years old. She's a grandmother. She didn't have a college education, took iOS development, and now she has an app in the App Store.
I was a single mom. Your whole purpose is to make money for your kid. And teaching myself tech gave me the self-assurance, like I can do anything. Just one of the things why I wanted to start a Girl Develop It is to empower women.
The women in our community are leveling up from being students in our classes to turning into TAs, to then teachers, and then becoming leaders in their communities. And then, you know, one of our chapter leaders started as a student in Philadelphia, became a software developer, moved to Burlington, and started a Girl Develop It chapter in Burlington.
I taught in February of 2014 the very same class that I took exactly 1 year before.
When you think about what those students went on to do and who they went on to inspire, what friends they went on to say, hey, I'm gonna get this job and make a lot more money and be happier and be self-sufficient.
It's clear that there are incredibly talented women out there, and all we need to do is just connect them, and we can conquer anything.
We have a very specific mission and we're doing it. It's really exciting.
Yeah, is that good? So again, community is just people talking. It's about that spark of around a not new idea, which is just, damn it, people connect. As I said, community creates support, collaboration, and opportunity. And, you know, whether it's these kind of new organizations like Girl Develop It, these nonprofits like the Young Survivors Coalition of Breast Cancer, or the way in which you see Salesforce, you know, kind of spawning meetups all over the place to around what they're doing. We've realized that we haven't done the best job at Meetup in actually serving community managers. Any of you Meetup organizers here around your organization, around your company? So maybe, you know, I hope it works for you, but I got to admit that, you know, we're focused. We've been so focused on just serving the people, and we'll always be focused on serving the people. But we know that we can make it easier for community managers to create, to transform the audience into community in a better and better way. So today we're announcing something here at CMX for the first time ever. We're trying to answer that question. How can we make it easier for community managers? So we're launching Meetup Pro. And Meetup Pro is about putting the power of Meetup to work for your organization. And this is Meetup Pro. It is the heart of it is basically being able to create an umbrella account on Meetup to house all of the meetups that are around your organization. And we think this is going to be just really useful, simple, easy, and really important for your part in creating this community future. It's going live today, and we are, and I'm really proud of some of the organizations that are launching with it. Google Developer. So Google noticed that in 650 places, people had started Google Developer meetups. These are the people building Android apps and all the other Google-related apps. And so they are using Meetup Pro to help those people do what they're doing better. Docker, Salesforce, Girl Develop It, and Young Survivor Coalition are other examples here that are gonna run with Meetup Pro. That map will down the line come with more Meetup analytics, more member insight, because I know that's important. We've heard that from community managers. And the other thing we've heard from community managers is the ability to communicate with their chapters, with their meetups around the country and around the world. So this is all about, and this is, I love how David, the CMX organizer here, and I are on this sort of same wavelength. He was talking about this, about how an audience becomes a community, a true community, right? And so what we're trying to do is just that. I swear we didn't make that slide in the past couple hours. That was, but basically, just to wrap up, the dream, the vision is that whatever the things that you're working on, how do you really connect people? How do you really spawn community that is not about you, but is about them, and in the end, it benefits you? That the community future that we need is that giant spike in connections, people finding the others, lastly, we're gonna give something special to those of you who have an interest in giving a shot to Meetup Pro. So use code CMX over here. I really wish that you all. Oh, and by the way, there's 3 of us here from Meetup. You can DM us on Twitter if you want to chat, or find these other 2 beautiful faces. By the way, Nick Stamas is the lead product engineer at Meetup on Meetup Pro, so he's here today. Thanks, Nick. Well done. And Dana is our director of community operations, so she's got something that I think a lot of you would love to talk about. We have a 30-person community support operation at Meetup. Those of you heading in that direction, she's a really interesting person to talk to. So thanks, everyone.